Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. He hits it. It's over the bar. Oh, holy Moses!
This week's RTÉ GAA podcast is a casual contact at best. How are we doing? Welcome along to the RTÉ GAA podcast. I'm delighted to be joined as always by Rory O'Neill. I've got Pat Spillane and I have Anthony Daly as we chat on the eve of the return of Club GAA, or actually it's returning tonight in my own county of Wexford. So a lot of you will probably be listening to this after the return of Club GAA, which starts with a good match, defending Wexford champions St Martin's against England's Oulart. So it's a good one. Anyway, that was a long spiel and intro. How are we all doing, lads?
Very good.
Very well, Mikey.
Good. We've lots to chat about. The GAA is back. A lot of us doubted it would be back. But a week of some relief to people started in quite a sad manner with the news that Cork All-Ireland winning footballer Kieran O'Connor passed away after struggling. He was suffering with cancer for the last 3 years. Very sad. He's behind a wife and 3 children. Last night on Game On, his captain and good friend, Graham Canty, was speaking with David Gillick and Marie Crowe, and he had one delightful anecdote which really tells us the manner of the man, what a competitor he was, that it didn't matter who he was playing against, whether it was one of his best friends and All-Ireland winning teammates. If there was a ruckus on the field, he wasn't going to take a backward step. Let's have a listen to this.
Because he was just a ferocious competitor, but that was kind of ingrained in him. I think it was something that he was kind of born with, and probably nurtured below in Adhering. Adhering in East Cork, they seem to breed them tough below there. That's just the way they are. But Kieran was one of the toughest of them all. He didn't have to shout from the rooftop. But one particular occasion, I think I was coming towards the end of my inter-county career. Kieran had just finished up the year before, and we were playing a club game, blowing at it down East Cork. Tough place to go to, no first league game into January. Wet day, of course, it was, as it usually is in January. And Bantry Blues, my own team, we played at it in a club game. Tight, tough club game, a league game, not a whole lot at stake. It's the first league game. But about maybe 10 minutes left anyway, there's a point or two in it. I can't remember who was up or down. But some of a bit of melee started out anyway. And anyway, a bit of pushing and shoving more than anything. But 1 or 2 lads kind of fell over. And the last 2 players up off the pitch for myself and Kieran, we had each other kind of by the throat or whatever. These kind of things happen. And the ref kind of said, lads, just cop yourselves down and get up. And there's no big deal. Dust yourselves down, finish the game. I'm not even sure who won. But after the game, I spoke to one of my teammates, and he goes, geez, yourself and Kieran, you don't really get on, obviously. And I said, geez, no. I said, we were fierce friends. Like I said, I'm actually jumping into his car there now, heading up the road, and our 2 wives are above, we're going up for dinner, and he goes, but you had each other by the throat. I said, that's the man. He's a competitor. He wants to win, and that's just the way he was.
A lovely memory there, Rory, and he all the tributes this week speak of just a competitor.
Yeah, listen, it's very sad for his family, particularly 3 young kids, his wife, obviously all his extended family, his the club Ahada, and he was a club mate, obviously, of Conor Coonahan's and Pierce O'Neill, part of a good Cork team that I think probably didn't get the kind of credit they deserved for the kind of resilience that they showed. I mean, they went to 6 semi-finals and 3 finals before finally getting over the line. And he was part of that setup. Real dogged corner back, very good player. And I suppose it just spoke volumes really when the news originally broke about how serious his illness was when the friends of Kieran got together, and just the way that not only the Cork, we'll say GAA family rallied around, but I think the GAA family kind of across the country really rode in behind to try and raise some monies to try and kind of get the kind of treatments that he was going to require in Germany and further afield. So I think it's a very sad day for everybody associated with Cork GAA when the news finally came there, and you just wish sincerest condolences and best wishes to his family.
Pat, he was part of a Cork team that undoubtedly had Kerry's number, so you must have some unpleasant memories of him, which just, again, speak volumes of the footballer and the team he was part of.
Well, first of all, it puts things into perspective. We complain about the weather, the lockdown and whatever. Just my heart goes out to Sinead and the children and to his parents and his in-laws and to his sister and brothers and the whole footballing family. And I had a tragic loss at such a young age. I thought he was best described as a player by one of his former Cork colleagues during the week, who said he was a warrior. He was the fellow who you wanted to go to war with. And that's what he was. He was a very... He was a traditional cornerback, tight, tenacious, great man markers. Just the sort of fellow we'd actually need in Kerry at the moment, you know. But he was more than just a tight, tenacious man marker. He had loads of pace. He had great pace. He was great at bursting up the field and capable of getting a point. And you know, as defenders go, he had a great innings. He had the shortest straw any defender in the country had during that decade, because the short straw was his job to mark Gooch Cooper. And I'll tell you this, he did the job as good, probably better than most. He was a great player, played tough, played hard, but played fair. A terrible loss.
Yeah, Anthony, his loss is it's been very keenly felt across the country, but it's kind of in an odd way heartening. He such a long fight with cancer, and like just how the GA community and the community in general in East Cork kind of rallied around him. We've had echoes of it now with the Better Life for Livy and the Do It for Dan campaign. It kind of shows the best of the GA even when they're not on the pitch, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I suppose that story, even with himself and Graham, shows, like, you know, we start back, as you said, Mike, at the top of the show with the club. The club was everything to him, obviously, and Graham being one of his best friends, and they planned a night out. But first of all, battle had to be done, and he was willing to do that for Ada. But it's, as Pat said, like it's the human loss, and that puts things in total perspective. And yeah, the GA are great like that. You know, I was only talking to Ken McGrath during the week, and when Ken had his open heart surgery that time, you know, the community in Ireland and hurling came behind him and supported the family. So yeah, they are great in a time like that. But you know, look, it's just a time of terrible mourning for his family and the people who were very close to him in his club and his county teammates. And we know how blessed we are. I know, Pat, you've lost a few year lads from your team, and we were to be the 25-year team this year. Hopefully we might be waving around Christmas. But we're all still there at the moment anyway, and you know, that's what you'd be hoping, that we would get to be there together on that day. So yeah, it's tough, very very tough situation.
Well, we obviously we send our best wishes to all his family and friends and those connected with him. So moving on to this week, Pat, you ruffled some feathers with a column in the Sunday World about a month and a half, 2 months ago. I think the headline put on it was "Throw open the gates" or something to that account, and when we were still, you know, kind of in the weeds, shall we say, and people were wondering whether it was responsible or whether it was we had to take a backward step, yada yada. The gates have been thrown open, and this weekend they're being properly thrown open for 200 people in total, and yet there are a few worrying signs. You know, Neffet are worried, and we have kind of a few GA clubs. I think we've got a strange situation in Laois. We've got a few clubs in Derry closing down now. Are you confident that things are progressing as they should, and you know we can focus on the football and the hurling?
Well, I'm not responsible for headlines or anything like that, but you know, unfortunately,
that's my job, Pat. Don't worry, I wouldn't hang you for that.
Unfortunately, at the time of the article, most people who sort of criticised me forgot to read the article, and sadly, the article was a little bit different, because basically what I said was, under phase 1 of the government reopening of coming out of lockdown, phase 1 allowed for groups of 4 to go to their field, in groups of 4. And I said, the GA fields are closed. Why not allow groups of 4 to go into GA fields, particularly in rural areas where it wasn't happening? That was it. Very simple. It wasn't, let's put 600 fellas running around the field, let's start training the teams. It wasn't. It was, why don't we go along with the government guidelines, Neffet guidelines, 4 are allowed trade. And that's what I wanted. Right. Obviously, it's great to see GA back. It's great to see sport back in some form. The closer we come to throw-in this weekend, Rory, and I was one that always wanted and always felt that there would be competitive action before the end. The closer it's coming to throw-in, I'm beginning the more fear and anxiety and trepidation because, you know, as Donald Rumsfeld said, we're heading into unknown unknowns. We really are. It's a new normal. Corona hasn't gone away. It isn't going away. It's there. There is going to be risk involved. And the key is we're going to have to balance risk and reward. And I think whether this will be successful or not, it boils down to ourselves as a group, as individuals. And we must take collective responsibility. We can't cut corners. We can't have complacency. We must do the regulations, follow them exactly, and hopefully it'll go well. The last couple of days and the last couple of weeks, you worry when you hear a lot of cases. But then, you know, I look at the GA, what was sent out by the GA during the week, and there's this, like, I think there's a lot of fear out there. I think there's a lot of mixed signals, and maybe in a lot of cases, there's a lot of scaremongering and there's a lot of panic, and maybe wrong decisions are made. But the GA, it comes down to this definition. What is the difference between close contact and casual contact? That is the key thing. And according to the GA, according to what was released this week, outdoor activity is not considered close contact. Outdoor activity is considered casual contact. And the advice is to carry on as normal as long as you're symptom free.
Yeah. Anthony, in theory, this sounds great. A close contact, you're either in a dressing room, which isn't open, or you're probably getting a lift from somebody. In a car is the most likely. You probably saw Leash today, and Stephen Miller, a good journalist, sports journalist down there in Leash, who's kind of reporting that there's two GA clubs in Leash who both played challenge matches against O'Lane in Carlow at the weekend. Killishin and Arles Kilcrews. Apologies if the
deletion.
If I'm making a mess of those. And now those clubs are a little unsure. And what I hear anecdotally is there's potentially one or two fellas on this team who have tested positive, and the guys from the other teams who were marking them for 60 minutes. I know they say, 20 times less likely outdoors, etc. They're obviously a little bit concerned. They're probably going for testing, and all their teammates are a little bit concerned. And it just shows, like, you can say casual and close contacts and all this, but the whole thing is, it's kind of a house of cards, and people are going to be worried, and clubs are going to stop activity. And if they stop activity for a week, what happens to these club championships that are being run off in 11 weeks and in some cases 5 weeks? It's a real
knife edge.
It's real dodgy, isn't it?
Yeah, you can imagine, Mike, as well. It's probably known locally who the guys or guy that has tested positive, and you're thinking you'd probably know him. They're only over the border in lots of cases, and sent it. I met him with a tackle there in the first half,
came out and
and I think there's a hurling crossover as well, in that he's a dual player, and there's a whole, and I that'd be one of the things I would have disagreed with, was that we're not having Munster Club this year, Mike. We're not having an All-Ireland club, and I thought those challenge matches were very loose right from the start. There we saw Marty on the 6-1 news showing us on the very first night, the Monday night, Coolderry from Offaly versus the Fight Harriers in Wexford. And you're just saying, does that tally with what we're being advised
there
to do?
is a reason that the provincial championships weren't being staged, yet the clubs are organising friendlies on a provincial, I mean,
even outside the provincial, Rory, I know of Clare clubs that played Cork clubs and Dublin clubs, in the last few weeks, which makes no sense to me. For the year that's in it, again, of course, locally in the GA, we were so slow making the decisions on the draws. So, you didn't want to play a challenge match against the crowd you were going to be meeting in the first round. Yeah. So make the draws rapid in the first week. Come up with your system. The system didn't change too much in Clare. System was there. You'd know who you were meeting if the draws were made and who you were avoiding. So you could have had a couple of practice matches. I know my own crowd have only played one and have played a whole pile of internal games, but Yeah, that was a big mistake, I think, letting cross-county, cross-province challenge games. I think that was silly.
But I don't think so.
Pat's right. It is a worrying time.
Yeah,
I do think so.
At the same time, I don't see any. Is there much of a difference between a Kerry club playing a Cork club or a South Kerry club playing a North Kerry club? There isn't. Viruses don't recognise international borders. Viruses don't recognise.
It's the tracing afterwards, though, Pat. It's the tracing afterwards. If a case breaks out, becomes slightly more complicated.
Yeah, but I mean, it's
a lot easier if it's a more localised.
You take
Finoog,
Pat. You take Finoog going across playing whoever, Nemo Rangers or St Finbarrs in Cork City, right? Now all the Finoog fellas play hurling with Snaw. So Snaw have already played maybe Ballybrown and Limerick. It's a whole pile of, that we didn't need to be getting into as far as I'd be concerned.
But the only thing is getting back to that, I mean, to that first clip of Coolderry playing Fate Harriers, I mean, in fairness, there was no regulations in place that time. I mean, the regulations as regards, it's only really this week that the roadmap and the plan has come out as regards no one allowed in dugouts, only 5 officials on the sideline for football, 7 for hurling. So, this is something that's evolving constantly. It's a new for everyone. And in some cases, there may be a lot say with the government with relation to, say, education and the reopening schools. They're only making it up as they go along.
And that's all you can do, I suppose, to a certain extent. Like, I've been at a couple of games over the last week, 10 days, just challenge matches here with my own club. Like, we played Sylvester's there of Malahide, and we played St. Mars of Rush last Tuesday night.
You're keeping it local?
Yeah, I'm very local, and but I did umpire, and I was curious to see how the whole thing would pan out. Now, I mean, okay, it's outdoor. Apparently, outdoor the risks are a lot less, and there are guidelines there. But lads were spitting, lads were coughing, lads were doing snot rockets, lads were in on top of each other, shouting and roaring into people's faces. I think I saw the sharing of water bottles going on. So, and I'm not casting aspersions on anybody in that scenario. It's just very difficult to change the habits of a lifetime in the space of a couple of weeks. It might take time before a lot of these things bed in. But I didn't see an adherence to the guidelines that were being laid out. And I don't think it's anybody's fault, by the way. I just think...
But spare a thought this weekend and next weekend for the club referee. I mean, I know. and he lands for... It's bad enough that this year...
You hear every day, Pat.
Yeah. Spare a thought, right? Yeah. I do have sympathy for him.
Jeez, I would.
I've none.
Standing down to... He gets the worst, right? The fellow who gets the worst, right? The Junior B Championship match. He arrives with no umpire, no linesman. No linesman, right. So first off, this year, he has a new bunch of football rules. Oh, God, it was like, so right, oh, gee, what's extra this year? There's an advanced mark, the kick out. How many seconds?
Water breaks.
All right. How many, was that kick 20 metres from the advanced mark? Did he kick it from outside the 45? Okay, how long was your man in the dugout for the sin bin? It's like, taught that. I mean, that on his own is a minefield. Right, so now, fast forward, and he has another raft of regulations this week, and he has to make sure, I presume, that there's only 5 fellas on the sideline for football, that the Mayarishka is now gone, that there's no spitting, no blowing the nose, no team huddles. It's I don't know.
And 2 water breaks.
Yeah, you're into St. Jude territory. Hopelessly.
The junior B hurling referee, on the other hand, has a handy number.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Don't bring a whistle a lot of the time, Anthony, do they?
Oh, let him at it. I think is about the best way.
I don't know if you heard John Horan. He was on Morning Ireland this morning being Friday morning when we're recording this, and quite sensible in some ways, but he came across a bit like the adults from the movie Flashdance at one point, where he said sport and partying are not going to work at the moment because it's partying that has brought many of these challenges to our doors as regards to the virus. It seems to me like John Horan wants the million odd GA players around the country not to socialise for the next 2-3 months, and then we'll be grand. That's you feel for a club referee. I feel for the club manager, Anthony, who's trying to say, now remember, lads, we're not going to have any crack now at all for the next 3 months. All you want to do now is hurl for the next 3 months.
Yeah, well, that'll be all right, Mikey, once you're still in it. Like, but you know, I know the Clarecastle lads, win or lose the first round, you have a second chance. But if you lose the second round, you're gone. And like trying to tell them that night they're not going to be getting in somewhere for a pizza, a €9 pizza, and a father of pints. And that's why I think, you know, the decision not to open the rural pubs, and you know, I think, you know, we've heard a lot of
contributing to the house party culture.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, you know, look.
Can I get in there, because this
my parents are gone away, lads. Call over to mine, and you know. So
I mean, listening to John Horan, you know how things have changed. I mean, it was only a couple of months ago that John Horan was saying, as long as there's social distancing, you won't have GA games. We still have social distancing. The GA games are on. The GPA, 20% of their members said, unless there's a vaccine found, we won't be playing football or hurling this year. They're back playing. But so things are evolving, things are changing. But do you know what Anthony just referred to? The rural pubs. I was a rural publican for many years, and this is the problem this is the danger I see with regard to the regulations. This one size fits all regulation that'll work for everyone. So who in there, like, for a start, so you have stupid sort of regulation. All right, you can only have you can go to a pub as long as it's serving a meal, and the meal must be €9. Now, why is the meal €9? And you know, I had to do research on it. The meal is €9 because the last time this act was done, the Liquor Licensing Act was done, was 1962. The price of a substantial meal in 1962 was 5 shillings. And some bright spark said, right, oh Jesus, we'll convert 5 shillings now to today's money, and it's €9. And suddenly you're safe now eating a €9 meal with your pint. Okay, but I see the problem, this one size fits all. So right, now, on next Monday, the pubs and the nightclubs are lamped in together. The pubs and the nightclubs. The nightclubs, some of these nightclubs can fit 2,000 people. The average size of a nightclub is 2,500 square feet to 10,000 square feet. Some of these nightclubs have 7 or 8 or 9 bars inside it. And these are now on the level, same playing pitch as Creedon's the top of Coombe pub. Creedon's the top of Coombe pub is between Kinmare and Ballyvourney. It's the highest pub in Ireland. It's in a lovely rural, isolated area. And holy God, Creedon's and Copperface Jacks are in the same boat. It is gobbledygook. And you know, and this goes back to something, Rory, and I have to say this because I have the figures of what they were saying. This one size fits all. And I'm thinking we're going to have to be brave at some stage. We're going to have to go down the English route and say, maybe we might have to do regional lockdowns. Maybe like Leicester, we might have to do...
They're talking about Blackburn now. They're talking about Blackburn next, yeah.
Can I give you, just from today, because I'm on the COVID app, and I said, right, what are the number of cases, right? Bear with me. 48%, almost half the cases of COVID in Ireland are in Dublin, right? 48%. 11 counties have 1% or less. 6 counties have 2% or less. And 5 counties have 3% or less. Can I add them all up? That means 22 out of the 26 counties in this country have less than 3% of the COVID cases. We need to scrap this one size fits all, and we need to look at regional.
No, 100%.
That's my rant over.
I was saying to myself, Pat, I have a pub here beside me, my own place, Marty Brown's, and like next Monday we would have had 10 or 12 of our regulars back in and easily social distance. To compare that, as you said, to Copperface Jack. Just,
and I'm not picking out Copperface, but I mean, you referred to there, Auntie. There's a couple of things. I mean, I'm not an advocate. I'm not here to talk for the pubs, but with the pubs, in a pub, you have a controlled environment. You have a controlled, managed environment where people are ensuring that they're sensible drinking. All I've seen for the last couple of months, one of the greatest, first of all, house parties. Oh, God save us. So 50 was the limit indoors, but there's no limit on a private dwelling. That's number one. Number two, I can tell you this without fear of contradiction. One of the fastest growing sectors in the Irish construction industry over the last couple of weeks has been the construction of she-beans to the size of houses, to the back of houses, she beans. It is loop to loop. So this is what we've contributed. And I tell you this, when you talk about social, and Anthony knows it, I ran a rural pub for years. Social distancing has been happening in rural pubs for the last 10 years because there's no one in them. God, there's no one in them. You know, and in a little village out in the middle of nowhere where the only little bit of a social outlet is the pub, and the 6 or 8 fellas are gathered there at night. Oh God, like it's out. Forget about economic. It's social. It's a social. It's a mental thing. And I know from a tourist, and Anthony is in a tourist region. I mean, so the pubs are not going to open till the end of August. All I know from my experience as a publican in South Kerry, that you made your money in the 3 summer months, and the other 9 months were a wipeout. So the pubs are closed for 5 months. They may as well close for 12 months, and it's wrong.
Should point out that house parties would continue even if pubs were open, but I get your point that if there's no pubs open, there will be more house parties. But we should just note that house parties happen even when pubs are open.
My eldest daughter, her bunch of friends, she's 21, like, and they booked their kind of week doing the Wild Atlantic Way, 5 of them hitting off on Sunday, with the pubs reopening on Monday, with that view of that, like, you know, waiting and saying we'll do it right now and we'll do it, and they're heading off now. But they're actually look, we're all hearing the stories about people going in and ordering a toasted special, lads, and staying for 7 or 8 hours. Don't be telling me it's not going on. Like, it is going on. It is. And yet people are still keeping their doors closed in other cases. You know?
And to bring it back
all over the shop.
And to bring it back, I suppose, to a GA context as well. I mean, I think like people can say whatever they like about John Horan in terms of maybe, you know, some of the messaging early doors. Like, the reality is, I think he makes a very fair and reasonable point this morning. I mean, you're going to have a situation in 2 weeks' time where RTÉ will be showing, hopefully, Glen Rovers versus St. Finbarrs, right? And the game is fixed for Páirc Uí Chaoimh, which can hold 45,000 people outdoors, right? And we will, the Cork County Board will be allowed, because if you factor in management, officials, players, subs, and then you'll probably have a chunk of media between camera crews and news reporters. You might be allowed 30 spectators in total. Well, you know, by the time you factor everything in, into a stadium that holds 45,000. I
agree with you, Rory. I agree with you, and I tell you this goes back to where do they pluck these 5K, 10K? Who has suddenly decided that, oh gee, we must retain 200 maximum? I mean, you're right. Next Friday night, the first round of the Kerry Senior Club Football Championship is on. Temple No play Dr. Crooks in Fitzgerald Stadium, Killarney. It has taken 45,000 people. 45,000 people. At maximum, there will be 100 people dotted around the stadium. Holy God. I mean, I will agree with John Horan. Will someone beat sense into somebody and say, there is no problem having 500 people in these GA stadiums?
More than 500. There would be no problem in having 5,000 people in the stadium.
The slight problem here, though, I think, Anthony, and this is what some people will admit, and has already been said to me this morning, is John Horan is coming out, as is his right as the president of GA, but he's coming out batting on behalf of one organisation, 2 sports. Should he not go and talk to the FAI and the IRFU and maybe then go and try and lobby the government instead of, like, a GA solo run like this can often do more, you know, it often weakens your argument rather than strengthens it, you know?
Maybe there's merit in that, Mike. I suppose it was kind of foisted on us on Wednesday evening, and I suppose straight away we knew this weekend was going to be kind of caught numbers wise, but like, I know we'll play Saturday week. I played probably for 17, 18 years for Clarecastle. I don't expect I'll get to the match in 6 Mile Bridge, which easily has a fine stand, an embankment behind both goals, and a huge embankment at the far side. I'd imagine there'll be 100 between officials, stewards, players, medical people, and then the players will look for an out ticket for their fathers, their brothers,
But those days
we will probably, Wolf Tones will get 30 tickets. I'd say we'll get 30 tickets, and I don't think I'll get one.
Like Oulart and Martins tonight, Mikey. Is that in Wexford Park?
Yeah.
Actually, John Fogarty did an article on the stats regarding that game tonight. Because it's a live televised game and there'll be a TV crew as well, so there's a large media presence. There will be so it's 200. There will be 80 tickets for sale to the two sets of supporters. 80 tickets. That means Wexford County Board are going to take in €800 on the game tonight. 40 supporters from each side. And I agree with Anthony. And by the way, the days of one for the old father and the mother-in-law and the sister-in-law and the brother, they're gone. I mean, so there'll be a lot of very, very genuine people missing out on tickets. So,
but I know, Pat, there's a massive one in Dublin on Sunday, the hurling, like it will be Crokes and Bowden, like would it be great rivalry, great South. Crokes have already memoed all their members to say there will be no tickets. So there will be no supporter from Crokes. I don't know if Bowden done that, but Crokes have ruled it out, that there won't be any single supporter. They'll be catering for their stats people, their backroom staff. There will be no supporters. Wow. Because there's no way really of deciding
if you have a handful of tickets, you give them to
if you have 25 tickets to give out, what are you going to do? Have a draw? Maybe.
I place no blame on John Horan on going out and betting on his own. He's the president of the GA, and he's quite entitled to bet for it. The rugby season doesn't start till well into August, so I think what he's making is a very valid point. I can see no problem. Let's ditch the one size fits all approach. Let's look at case by case, and let's look at the GA. Have the GA at the stadium for 500 people, comfortably social distancing. Yes, they have.
Yeah,
it's a simple joke, Mike. It's a joke that 500 people couldn't be in 6 Mile Bridge next Saturday.
Yeah,
for a standalone fixture and loads of room. Like it's a joke.
I'm only assuming the government, if they were to make a special dispensation for the GA, they have to make special dispensation for Marks. Everybody will be coming and lobbying, and I guess when you're in the middle of a pandemic,
if we get good weather, go up to Lahinch, the people will be on top of each other on the beach.
I
was up in Fenor Beach a few weeks ago, so you couldn't hardly put on your togs.
Mikey, that example. But let's be clear. Let's be clear. Comparing GA grounds with Marks is comparing apples with oranges. A Marks is an indoor venue. A GA pitch is an outdoor venue. You are 19 times more likely to get COVID indoor than outdoor. So, I mean, how can you have the situation, as loads of people point out, that you can have more people in a shopping, you can have 800 people in a shopping center, you can have 500 people in a shopping center, yet you can't have more than 200 people outside in the fresh air.
Yeah, I'm not really comparing the GA grounds and the Marks. I'm just saying that if the GA legislate for every individual situation, they're going to tie themselves in knots, I would imagine.
No, but as long as social distancing,
struggling to keep on top of things.
As long as they're applying social distancing. And if they're applying social distancing, a stadium like Fitzgerald Stadium next Friday night, Timpano and Crokes, 40,000, and there's 50 from each side. I mean, holy God, social distancing comfortably can take 3,500 in that, roughly. 3,500, 4,000. Easy.
Tell me this, Anthony, whether it's 200 or 500, the atmosphere for that game that you're not going to get to next weekend in 6 Mile Bridge, it's not going to be what a typical Clarecastle 6 Mile Bridge game. The atmosphere is going to be like social distancing. Shop won't be open. There will be no children running onto the pitch at halftime to have a puck about. It's going to be like, and we're all delighted the games are back, even if just to read about them and watch them on TV or on a streaming service. But whether it's 200 or 500, it is going to be quite an unusual Clare Hurling Championship, isn't it?
Yeah, we won't be going up to Niall Gilligan's bar afterwards for a beer either before we hit for Clarecastle. So
if you get a meal,
another one, no.
Why not have a meal?
Gilly doesn't do. He might do the pizzas now shortly. I think there's a lot of people considering the pizza route. But it will be weird, Mike. It's going to be weird for players, but we're watching the Premier League, and we're turning on the false sound there at times. It is an IO, but I think it helps some bit watching it. But it's going to be weird. I think I'm looking forward to watching that Wexford match tonight. I mean, having a massive array of talent on view again on Sunday. Jesus, Bowden and Crokes, you've half the Dublin panel out there. So they're very attractive, but yeah, it's going to be weird. It's going to be very, very weird. But we're in a weird year. And who knows how long the weird times are going to continue. We're just going to have to, I think Pat is right in lots of ways. We're going to have to learn to live with certain aspects. There's no doubt about that. I mean, we can't stay locked away forever. Like, it's just not feasible. It's not doable. Like, you know, okay, the mask wearing and stuff like that. That makes total sense. You whip out your mask when you're going into the supermarket. What harm is that? Like, we know the other stuff that's going on. There's no point in denying, you know, people I know that went for a meal last Saturday and there was no, we told go after the 105 minutes. No, Jesus, we were there for 5 hours. You know, like, so look, and yet the wet pub, as I call it, beside me here has to keep the door locked, you know, all wrong. And we're even talking about, lads, we're talking about the 500 people in the GA ground. Yes, the 30 lads below in the field are going to be leathering the shite of each other. You know, the schmozzles now in hurling that we see too often, in my opinion. There could be 7 faces inside, maybe 14 faces inside within 2 foot of each other, growling and backing and biting to get at the ball, you know.
One lad coughs, you know, like, I mean, I don't know if anybody saw the demonstration that the BBC did recently where they simulated a scrum in rugby. And they put it into one of those hypothermic cameras, or you know, which moderates heat, and it showed the effect that a cough would have if the hooker was to cough, and the spray that it would cause in a scrum situation. Effectively, the entire scrum would be infected within seconds. So the close contact that you're going to get in hurling and football, while it wouldn't be that intense,
fairly limited enough. Another key factor.
Spoken like true forwards, Ali.
Another key factor is, and I don't know whether you saw this last night, where the Galway chairman came out, because there were restrictions for county boards. There's a whole new fad about to begin in terms of county boards streaming games, and I think it's a good initiative by a lot of county boards to actually get in on this, because one core part of the population that are going to be deeply affected are the people that are still cocooning, or whatever you want to call that, which is the elderly and people with underlying conditions who might not necessarily be able to go to games. So the streaming service is a really valuable thing, but there are contractual concerns that they would have there too, that they've got a few hurdles that they have to get over. But I think that is by and large a positive development. Would you think, lads?
Can I just say 2 things? You know, because I was writing an article for this week's Sunday World on a lot of what we were talking about today. But we were talking about the new normal and the way we're going to have to change things. So I just had a quotation, and I don't know whether Jimmy Dean has been quoted a lot on podcasts before in GA, but the great James Dean, can I just quote what he said? He says, "I can't change the direction of the wind, but I can adjust my sails to always reach my destination." And that's what we must do from now on. We have to change. We have to adjust. There's a new normal. And getting back to what you're talking about as regards the media rights, we are, for the next, until the end of the year, we're in a new normal in the GA world. And that new normal will mean that a lot of things that were set in stone will have to be cast aside. And that would mean that the media rights issue, which suggests that if there's a live game on TV, the county board cannot stream in opposition to that. That'll have to go. County boards, their only chance of generating some bit of revenue is, from a revenue point of view, is number 1, to generate some revenue for the county board. And number 2, as you alluded to, Rory, there's a lot of people in this new normal that are cocooning, the elderly that are afraid to go out. This is their opportunity of live streaming to get to watch their club. And isn't it great that this weekend and next weekend, that for the first time ever, the club players of this country, the unknown heroes, the little small clubs, the Temple Nose and the whatever like that, will be streamed. People, a wide audience can see their matches, and they are the kings. And you know, like, there's a lot of bad things in this lockdown. There's a lot of good things. Clubs are going well at the moment. There's huge crowds at training because there's no one working away.
That's right, yeah.
There's
no one in America.
There's no one in America. They're working from home. There's no summer jobs. There's 30 fellas in every field in Ireland. And you know what's even better? And what's even better, what they have spotted a rarely spotted species has been spotted in all these club fields. The county player has arrived. This is brilliant. This is brilliant. The county player who's never at club training because he's not allowed. He's there training with the boys, and what a lift it is for the club. What a lift it is for the players.
No, you're spot on, Pat, because like last Tuesday night, as I said, we were playing Mars of Rush, and the lads may have heard of him now, but I'm sure Pat has heard of him. But Mars of Rush have this young lad called Kieran Archer.
Forward.
So he's kind of the next great white hope in the conveyor belt of Dublin talent that they have.
They're a bit short, all right.
We'll cry now in a minute.
Yeah, but what was great was he played the full match, and it was fantastic because you're able to see this fella right in front of you, local game, kicking. I don't know, it's a 2-6 as usual, but it was, and you like the county players are all togging out. I think Nafina were playing Simonstown or Centralstown recently, and Johnny Cooper was there, and Marchand was there, and so all these players are all, So
I see another initiative as well this morning, Rory, there from Limerick. And they've proposed that the clubs who'll be videoing their games now, we know that goes on everywhere, sure, from managements now always wanted to send in the videos to Limerick GA, and on the Limerick GA channel then they'll have a highlights show maybe on the Wednesday night where they'll show. It'd be interesting to know if there's any little incidents where there could be video
that's
reviews.
The downside to this.
Will the video come in?
It's the discipline. That is the downside to all of this.
Or the crowd that get beaten 14 pints, will they be inclined to send in the video for
that? It'll be like the golf when you have the viewers narking on the golfers who do a double contact on a putt or whatever. That time Pádraig Harrington got he got snitched on by someone watching on TV. They said through the video. You'll be getting someone from a rival, spectator.
The sneaky cornerback is going to have to be careful.
But isn't it great? It's great that, look, we have 5 counties start their county championship this weekend. Every county in Ireland will have their county championships played next weekend. They're in the spotlight. They've got full access to all of their players, and we're in a way we're returning to the grassroots where to quote Charles Kickham, it's about the honour and glory of the little village, and that's what we're going to see over the next couple of weeks. And we'll get new heroes, we'll get some great matches, and I know we will. And hopefully county managers looking out there will say, oh gee, there's some good talent here, instead of just going with the same old from the conveyor belt of development squads under 17, 20. Let's look at the county championship games, let's see who's playing well there, and let's promote them to county.
I was just trying to think when you were talking earlier there, Pat, about the county player being around. Like, I can imagine back in the day in Temple when the Spillanes alone would arrive back. That was a fair contingent arriving back.
But in those days, this was the difference. Look, the Irish rugby team, the Irish rugby players can play an interprovincial on weekend, and the following weekend they can play an international. The international manager doesn't have a problem. The Premiership player can play an international on a Wednesday and can play Premiership either way. But our county manager, the county player must be free for 6 weeks beforehand, and he must be wrapped in cotton wool. Now, in our day with Kerry, it was 2 weeks before the championship you couldn't play with the club, but other than that, you played with the club. It's maybe, so like I said, we're not getting into the club county or whatever like that, but at least hopefully we're now seeing an opportunity where the county player is now back training and playing with the club. It's where he should be.
We do have that much maligned creature with us. He may not be a county manager right now, but he has been on occasion. And that's an interesting point Pat makes about county managers getting to see club players. I'm interested. What is in the normal calendar? That is a problem, I guess. You're relying on college games more so, on like age grade matches. Actually watching senior club championship match and picking a squad off the back of them is a rare luxury for the inter-county manager, is it?
Yeah, and we would always have had that April in Dublin. While I was with Dublin there, we'd have had a couple of games in April. What you'd see this is a bit different, I think, in that lads have been able to I know in our own case now, we would have had a lad that would have been a very prominent Clare underage player, would have won an All-Ireland under 21 when he was quite young, and had just wretched time the last 2 years with injuries. Brian Lohan brought him back in at the start of the year, kind of threw the net wide open coming in as a new manager, but he couldn't train properly. And now I'm hearing he's in great shape, facing into Saturday week. So I'm hoping in the 200 they're making room for Brian Lohan to go in anyway. And the fact that we're playing Wolf Tones na Shona, Brian Lohan's own club, so I presume he'll be at that and he might get a look at. It's Bobby Duggan, people will know, Claire, people will. Bobby's captain now of the club team and has really seemingly got into great shape and the injury cleared up. And so, you might have a couple of lads sticking their hands up saying, I'm back, I'm hungry, I'm fresh, and I'm ready to go. So, it could throw up a few lads like that, I'd say, in counties.
And then, Pat, you also have the county players playing club. They have targets on their back Sunday. You have your club players who maybe got dropped off the county panel or never quite made it, and they're getting their shot at the county guy, the chance to impress. They know that there's to use that awful phrase, there's a shop window there, and there's somebody they compare themselves against.
Absolutely, and bear in mind that the county player is not a protected species when it comes to club matches. But in fairness, the county player is not targeted either. There's no team goes out and says we must take out the county player, whatever. But it is a great opportunity because unfortunately over the years now, you're really only selecting from Sigerson, Fitzgibbon, and the county under 17 or under 20. There's a conveyor belt there. The stats are under 14 development squads, and that's where the county player comes from. Not many county players are sprung out of being brilliant in a club championship and having, it's rare you'll come across a Kieran Donahue who never played underage or a Bernard Brogan. Suddenly, because he's so good at club, he's elevated to senior championship. So hopefully, look, the next couple of weeks in Kerry, as you know, Kerry, we do things a little bit differently. So we start with the Kerry Senior Club Championship. We start with the Kerry Senior Club Championship, which is run over 3 weekends, and then we take a break, and then the County Senior Football Championships starts. So it's exciting times. Our little club.
Are the divisions included, Pat?
Which is a good format, and people will see it. There's 16 teams in the County Senior Football Championship. 8 are clubs, 8 are divisional. So for my own little club, Timpano, 10 years ago we were Division 5. This year, we're the only rural club in the Kerry Senior Football Championship, which is an amazing achievement. So for a club to be playing Dr. Crokes, the former All-Ireland Club finalists of 2 years ago, next week in the first round of the Senior Club, first round of the Senior County, we're playing Dingle. So it's just brilliant. And it's exciting times to be a club player. It's exciting times to be a club supporter. And, I'm looking forward to the next couple of weeks.
You're not going to target Paul Ganey or anything like that.
Or will they target Killian Spillane or Adrian Spillane or Clive Morley or Gavin Crowley?
Small club.
And if you had a bit of time off and you were a GA supporter, you could make a fair. You could make a fair holiday for yourself if you could get into the games.
I'll tell you this. I mean, I'm looking forward to I'll watch the hurling tonight. I'll watch the hurling Sunday, and I'm going to be buying as many stream matches from various counties because I'm looking forward to seeing live action and looking forward to
see how they do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What's the population of Temple now out of interest, Pat?
400 about maximum.
Oh, geez, if you got up to 500, you would have been almost laughing.
Well, look, and Auntie will know with small rural clubs. With small rural clubs, I mean, it's cyclical. Every now and again, a bunch arrives. We just happen to have a bunch of lads that arrive together. I mean, at minor level, at under 16 level, at under 14 level, we amalgamate with 2 other clubs to make 13 aside. That's the plight of our clubs. But at the moment, we just have a bunch. They stay together. They're a lovely bunch of lads, and they'll only be together for 3 or 4 years. In 10 years' time, we'll be probably back in Division 4 or Division 5. But we'll enjoy the couple of weeks and the couple of months that we have.
Right. We'll finish up then. That's a nice note. So just, Anthony, finally, we might as well talk about the games. What chance do you give Clare Castle next weekend?
We'd probably be slight favourites against Wolf Tones. I mean, but the matches are a bit irrelevant in some ways, Mikey, because what happens is if you win, you play a loser the following week, and the draw has thrown up a good lot of the hot pots meeting each other and a few of the weaker clubs, and we're weaker now. Like, we're seniors since 31, and we've a great tradition, but we've just fallen, and we haven't won a championship since 95 or 205, and so we're in a famine for ourselves, but we working hard underage, and we have a nice kind of a blend coming together. So we will be favourites for that first round. But then if we get the losers of 6 Mile Bridge and Aerogue or Kilmaley or Cratloe the following week. We could be out in our ear 2 weeks later, There's a round of football the following week. So, but look, for us to get up and get a win, and Multones are the same way. They go, they have great tradition since the Lowens time, and that they went back intermediate. They got back up senior 2 years ago, and they'll be very anxious to kind of try and get one round up. There's no relegation this year, but they have doubled down on the relegation for next year then. So 2 are going to go down next year, I think. So in that sense, I suppose it's fair enough. But looking forward, really looking forward to that match on Sunday, I have to say, because
I was involved with chances.
Yeah, like, geez, they were 2 epics 2 years ago, the county final and the replay. I mean, puck of a ball both days. I had a free to win it in the drawing game and missed it. And like, you still have a lot of the same talent and a lot of young guys in. Crokes have won the last 2 minor A's, so they'll be thrown in.
And Kilmacud have improved their management team, haven't they?
They have. Well, you know what? They've looked at their underage situation. I know, no, fairness. They've looked at their underage situation and great chat with Peter Walsh finishing up there, the chairman, great guy. And he said, maybe we can try and make Coola was the team of the last decade, if you like, in Dublin hurling. Maybe we can try and be, because they've won the last 2 minor A's and probably would be favourites again for the minor A this year. So there'll be a few. There's fellas like Pádraig Glenahan, watch out for him, Mark Grogan, these guys on Sunday, they'll feature. Whereas for me, they were only just breaking, they're 17, 18. You could throw them in maybe for a bit, but likes of Ryan O'Dwyer is gone, has retired. Niall Corcoran has gone back to play for his home club in Ayr Court, which is a great story as well for a year. He's 38 now, but very fit. And but there's change in Crokes, Bowden as well, So yeah, it won a fascinating game, I think, and the massive game in Dublin over the weekend.
As you said, aren't we glad to have him? And as you said, it's back tonight on TG Cahir, and our Irish language friends have matches over the weekend. Rory, we're keeping our powder dry till the 1st of August, is it?
1st of August, as I said, and look, I mean, we can talk about it when we get closer to the time, I suppose. Maybe I'm a bit slightly insular in that, looking at it purely from a Cork perspective, but to my mind, it will be one of the most storied fixtures in the history of all Club GAA, regardless of the fact that it's Cork, because it's the Glen Rovers against St. Finbarrs for obvious reasons. The Bars, which a lot of people tend to forget, by the way, are the only club that have won All-Ireland club titles in both hurling and football, which when I have to laugh sometimes when I hear people talk about, this club is the great club, and talk about Crossmaglen and Ballyhale, and I'm saying, what? Have you heard of St. Finbarrs from Cork, by the way? But yeah, the Bars playing the Glen. And are
we as well off, Rory, that there's less spectators allowed into that one?
Could be trouble, all right. The one thing that I was thinking about that, I know, look, we're wrapping it up now, but it's certainly in the bigger stadiums, like the way bigger stadiums are operated, I don't see anything wrong. Like, I know Limerick are looking at double headers, and I think double headers are something that a lot of the counties should look at when they have those big stadiums, because you can effectively section off the stadium, and you can make the stadium into 2 stadiums. So you can make the covered and a terrace for game 1, and then just close that off, so people are arriving and leaving the stadium from at different times, and it's all very staggered. So and that would obviously help in terms of the amount of people that you can get into these venues. And I suppose it's going to have to bring an element of creativity around how the match day presentation happens. For instance, even when the Intercounty Championships do come back, like this notion that when the full-time whistle goes, that we can all get up out of our seats and leave, that those days are gone. And simple little things like maybe they pipe the Sunday game post-match discussion onto the big screens, and then they stagger people as they leave. We'll say it might be the case that you might be able to get out of the stadium for an hour after the game, but you need to understand that that's what it's going to be. You need to be there an hour beforehand. It might be a 4-hour experience. But as long as you
could just pretend you're in Parky Grieve. You could just pretend you're in Parky Grieve anyway.
It's taken an hour to get out of Parky Grieve any day.
Exactly.
That's a good day.
Always finish up by giving the Cork fella the rub, Pat, isn't it?
Sorry, that was my fault for giving him an in to talk about Cork. I shouldn't have said a word.
Shouldn't have said a word.
Yeah, right. On that note, we've had Cork has had it speak, Kerry's had it speak, Clare's had it speak. We've all
Wexford tonight.
Wexford's tonight, so that will be it. Thank you to Pat and to Anthony and to Rory.
Cheers, Mikey.
Sure, it's great to have the matches back. You can follow them all, or at least some of them, and get all the results on Saturday Sport and Sunday Sport, and we'll have a good mix of it on the website over the weekend. So with that, I'll say goodbye, and do join us again next week. Thank you very much.
Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. He hits it.